The following is a Cheeky Leprechaun production.
Pop culture is the entirety of ideas.
Me, Mario.
Let the bass kick.
I am the greatest.
Holy eggshell!
I am your father.
This is the Pop Culture Report with Dan O'Kelly.
All right, another episode of the Pop Culture Report. Probably it's a requested episode, this one. It's been requested by a couple people. It was requested probably over a week ago, a week and a half ago, back when, around the time that Tiger King was released on Netflix, when it really started blowing up. Because, I mean, let's face it, Tiger King at this point is a pop culture phenomenon. Right or wrong, that's what it is. People can't stop talking about it. People can't get enough of Joe Exotic and Carol Baskin, Jeff Lowe, these sort of characters. They love it. They're obsessed. They're enthralled by these people. And look, when something is this big in pop culture, it is my duty almost to get myself across it, understand it, do the best I can to understand it, consume it, and then digest it in order to bring it to you in a podcast. Give my little humble opinion on something. And that's what I've tried to do this week. But with something like Tiger King, it's certainly very polarizing, okay? And when I walked away from it, I had a lot of, I probably had more questions than I had answers, okay? And I walked away thinking, okay, there's a lot to digest here. A lot to take into account, a lot to understand, a lot to wrap my head around, because there's so much covered in 7 arguably short episodes for the subject. What it was probably deserved a little bit more. But because I'd heard so much positivity, I was like, okay, there is people out there that really get this, that really are excited that this show exists. So in order to do it properly, I knew that I had to have a conversation about it, rather than just one way. It couldn't really just be me. I could have sat here and given you my opinion, my take on it, but I wanted to have some people who could at least have a differing opinion, or maybe bring a different angle to the table, or something they picked up that they thought was also interesting, because I can't be expected to remember it all when there is that much covered. So that's what I did. And in the process, to be honest, it's the first Zoom edition of the Pop Culture Report, because we're living in weird times, and we know this. We speak about it weekly. We allude to it. So in these weird times, I've conducted my first Zoom call with former guests, Justin and Jack, who have been on the show before, and you know them from prior episodes, such as the Super Bowl episode, where we all sort of fumbled our way through talking about the commercials that take place during the Super Bowl. So we've Zoomed it, and to be honest, it took a couple times. It took us a couple goes because there was some internet issues, first of all. Another time I forgot to record at first. That was good. Luckily, I realised probably 4 to 5 minutes into it, so we stopped and started again, and we hadn't really covered too much. But a little bit exciting, first Zoom call. So the quality is a little bit different today. There's not 3 people sitting here in the one room. It's over the internet, and you know by now we're all living in a world of Zoom, all right? Yeah, that's how they're teaching things. They're doing work over Zoom. Everyone's used to it. So, a little bit of a Zoom show today. All right, so pretty much let's jump straight into that conversation. I'm going to go now. My Zoom meeting is what they're called. It wasn't a meeting at all. It was just 3 mates discussing a little bit of what is relevant in pop culture right now, the phenomenon that is Tiger King. All right, Jack, Justin, good to have you back on the podcast. A little bit different to normal, though. You're at your own homes. How are you?
Yeah, not bad.
Not too bad.
Yeah,
Yourself?
I'm all right. I'm dealing with isolation best I can. We're trying to do the podcast. What do you think? It's a bit different to normal?
It's comfortable.
Very.
It's comfortable.
Yeah,
You're
that's a
more
good
comfortable.
point.
Yeah.
Okay, you're more comfortable at your houses than mine. That's interesting. Not a good host.
I mean, like, I've got my bed behind me. I could just go lie down if I want to.
If it gets that long, feel free. All right, just carry the computer over, and that'll be fun. Jack,
Yeah,
where are
easy.
you? You look like you're in a study or something, or is that your
Yeah, I'm in a study. I've had to. This was the worst part, was the fact that I had to clean up all these shelves and things behind me and this whole thing. Because, like, obviously when I'm doing online uni, I don't want all of my classmates to see how much of a mess I am. So I had to put everything together. And
Well,
make
But
people
you
are
use your
judgmental.
camera.
Sorry?
Justin,
I
he's
was just
talking
going
to
to
you.
say, yeah, I'm surprised that you used your camera. We're all told specifically keep your camera off.
Oh,
Like
See, we're told to
1%.
turn it on.
Oh, see, they're trying to
This is
save
sort of a-
bandwidth. We don't really care what people look like or what they're doing, but as long as you can
Nah,
hear
our
and
uni's
listen to the
got
main
so
person.
many rules.
well, I put up a Pulp Fiction poster just for this. So, trying to look, relevant in the whole world of
I
pop
like it.
culture, film,
Yeah.
pop
I've
culture.
got
It makes it look
Deadpool back there.
sophisticated. Yeah, not sophisticated. Deadpool, sort of just fanboy more so, isn't it?
a little bit.
Little bit. All right, speaking of fanboy, let's do it. Let's dive into Tiger King. That's why I wanted you to both come on today. I won't take up too much of your time, but it's become a pop culture phenomenon. Who better to talk about it than a couple of blokes that like talking pop culture? Now,
Hell yeah.
Jack, I'll start with you, mate.
Yes.
You've seen it? You were pretty keen
I
to come
have
on?
seen it. I
Okay.
have watched all the episodes, and yeah, I enjoyed it for the
And
most part.
Yeah, you enjoyed it for the most part. So there was some negatives
Yes.
on your behalf?
Oh, there was definitely a bit of hesitancy, I think, towards the end. I definitely sort of, when I first, because obviously I got into it after it had already become established as a bit of like a meme.
Mm-hmm.
So like it was going around, it was circulating, people knew about it, and I thought, what's all the hype about? I'll have a look and watch it.
Well, that was me too.
And I got,
I kept seeing this
Yeah.
guy, this blonde guy with a tiger. I was like, who the hell is that? Then
Yeah.
finding out this is this Joe Exotic character and it's some massive Netflix series, I thought, shit, I better jump on it pretty quick. That was pretty much where I found it too. It was on social media. I'm not even that sure why it blew up as much as it did, because it's not
Yeah.
like, I mean, the thing was though, he is the sort of guy where he's such a character that you feel like you've seen a person like that, but like he seemed familiar. Did you think that at all? Like the blonde,
I know what you're saying. Like he's very.
he's almost like
Yeah,
a stereotype.
You can look at him, and exactly what you think is exactly what you get, and it's that
Exactly.
sort of comfort.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, that makes sense.
It's very weird. Now, Justin, I spoke to you about Tiger King. I flicked you a message, I think last week, and I said, hey, have you watched Tiger King yet? You hadn't at that point, but you said you were going to do it, given, having the recommendation from so many people. How'd you go with it?
Yeah, I got 3 episodes in and I couldn't do any more. I just, yeah.
Goodness. Okay. What happened?
I think as like a bit of a backstory, I'm not a huge fan of those types of like documentary thriller stories that, how it gets involved into this kind of murder mystery. And I never watched How to Make a Murder or any of those. I've never really been interested in them. So
Okay.
I thought, hearing all of the stuff about this, I thought it was going to be along those lines, which is why I avoided it, because I didn't think I was interested. Also, generally the type of people that were promoting it were people I wouldn't normally jump on all of their recommendations.
Oh, Justin. All right. So anyone that watched it, you don't have a great deal of respect for.
I wouldn't go that far. I think it's more of the fact that those same things that blow up all the time just don't interest me. Like the last one was the cats one, the Don't F with Cats.
With cat.
Yeah,
I
same
never
thing.
watched that. I never
I
watched
got halfway through
See, I
that.
did.
And
No, that was better than this, I think.
I
won't
agree.
get into
I
that.
thought it was better, but still, I only got halfway through it before I kind of just got bored. And that blew up like this one did. So it's just that type of documentary doesn't interest me, and it interests a hell of a lot of other people.
Well, see, what was interesting about that one was I didn't watch it purely based on knowing the premise, which was quite a fucked up premise about a guy that does some bad shit to a bunch of cats or whatever the premise is. And I was like, no.
Yeah,
Funny,
Don't-
funny that, isn't it?
it's funny because
It's a
that
bit
kind of-
ironic, isn't it?
Then here we are.
I felt a bit of the same way about this. I mean, like you look at that, that's an extreme example of someone doing like animal cruelty that escalates to like murder and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
This is like, you know,
Same
it's,
thing.
it, in a lot of ways, it is the same thing, but I don't know. I just like
Just
this
bigger
whole
cats.
documentary. It's
Exactly,
just putting
bigger cats,
like
exactly right.
dumb assholes against dumb assholes with too much money and time on their hands. And
Yeah.
that's just what it's a reality TV show.
It is. And
I
that
agree
was-
with that. I agree with that statement. That
I think
it's
that
just
goes
a bunch
back
of
to what
dumb
you were saying
assholes.
before
I understand what
about
you're saying.
like when you were saying it's like that Joe Exotic guy is someone that you can picture as like a stereotype. It's because he is a reality TV stereotype.
Yeah.
Like he literally
Yeah.
says in it that like he'll do anything to get famous. And this whole thing is just making both of them more famous.
Well, and that's
So
what
it's-
I thought was a weird thing going into this documentary was the fact that they clearly picked from the outset who they wanted their villain to be, right? So they'd gone in thinking that Joe Exotic, he will be the bad guy here. And what they didn't realize was that throughout the whole documentary, all they were going to do was introduce new people that were arguably as bad, if not worse, than what he is.
Oh, they're all just as bad as each other.
But what they were
Oh, yeah,
doing
100%.
through introducing these people, I think, on a large degree, was to reinforce how bad he was by having these people tell stories about the things he was doing. But in doing so, you're like, hang on, wait, what did they say? What was their thing? And yes, they did shine a light on some of the shit. Like, what was that? Doc Antle or whatever his name was?
Yeah,
He was-
Bhagavan, Doc Antle, whatever. Yeah.
He's arguably way worse.
Oh, yeah, he's so
So
much
the guy
worse.
with multiple like wives,
With
that
all the
made-
wives, and apparently
changed
he
all their
puts-
names and stuff.
Oh, he's
And apparently he puts tigers in like gas chambers and stuff. Like it's
yeah. Well, Justin didn't.
apparently.
Just
I have to
wouldn't
say
have got that far.
apparently.
Well, yeah, I would say that is where do those stories come from? They have to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
So if somebody's
But
saying he puts
this
them in
is
a
the
gas
interesting.
chamber,
This is the interesting thing. Is I don't know if you've heard about this, but the fact that after the docos come out, all of these people that were in it are now being investigated because so much information was brought forward in this documentary that now all of these little sort of
well, it
like,
has to be.
throwaway lines and bits and pieces are being investigated because it's so bizarre.
But it has to be because if there is for every person that watched it, and this was largely my biggest issue was that like the concern that I had of how everyone was reacting to Joe Exotic, or I mean, Joe Exotic on the main part sort of became the anti-hero in the whole thing. And I'm baffled. I don't understand how or why he's become some sort of pop culture phenomenon where everyone's talking about free Joe Exotic and should Joe be locked up? Absolutely he should. He's a scumbag.
Yeah.
He's a piece of crap. But it's
Exactly.
because of the way they painted him in the documentary of, you know, everyone ganged up on Joe. Oh, poor Joe. He's just an idiot. Like, it's not his fault. He's a bit dumb and couldn't see it all coming.
Yeah.
So what? He was still putting down Tiger. What was lost in the whole thing was the animal abuse. Absolutely. Without a doubt.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Totally lost in it. And that, I don't know, Justin, did you get that vibe in the first 3 episodes? Obviously, haven't watched it all. It all sort of just blends as one in the end. But in those first 3, was that a factor for you that was sort of annoying?
Yeah. I one of the things that put me off was how much they were just skirting around how bad they were to the animals. Like I don't know if it was in the 2nd or 3rd episode when he's like losing all his money and he's forced to sell cubs again. And they show a shot of him and one of the guys, like one of the tigers is giving birth and he's got like a stick through the fence to pull the cub out.
He's dragging.
And then he
out.
just
Yeah.
drags it under the fence, like by shoving its head down. And
Yep.
I was like, I can't watch this. Like that. And they're making him out to still be the good guy and that he's having to do this because he needs money to fight her for a stupid law case. And then when they blow up the alligator pen, they're so much more worried about the footage than the fact that they've incinerated animals in an
And not
enclosure.
to mention the eyebrow raiser of, wait, did Joe
Did Joe
actually
do
light
it?
that fire?
Yeah.
Is that what happened there? That was weird too. But to your point, and again, it just seems to have been overlooked by everybody that every time these people were at war with each other, whether it was Joe and Carol or God, what's the other guy's name when he comes in towards the end? Jack, you'll know that who takes over to the zoo. You know,
The rich guy.
yeah, the gang, like he's
God.
like a mobster or some shit, and he
Yeah.
Something
yeah.
low.
yeah, Jeff Lowe.
Jeff Lowe, that's it.
These people, they're all in war with each other. And for a long period of time, it was Joe and Jeff against Carol, obviously, because that's where the whole murder plot starts brewing, is between those two. It's
Yeah.
like, Joe wants to have her killed. Jeff's like, oh, yeah, all right, I'll help you, but I don't want my name attached. All that happened in that time was animals got hurt. No people got hurt. None.
Yeah,
But-
it was just neglect. That's all that happened.
And that's what the weird part to me was. And I understand though why it's entertaining. Like, Justin, did you watch it and go, I can understand if you took out the animal stuff and you've got these three morons that are going to extreme lengths to try and sabotage and ruin each other, can you understand the train wreck of the excitement? Like, that's what it is. It is.
Yeah.
It's that train wreck entertainment.
That's a reality TV show.
Yeah, pretty much. And you know what?
Yeah.
It was controlled like a reality TV show. You could tell those producers were puppeteers. They were pulling the
Yeah,
strings.
absolutely. Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
But it did seem to be that they, through doing that, were more focused on the entertainment value of the characters rather than actually trying to get any real answers as to and try and determine right and wrong throughout the documentary. Like, there's a pretty blatant right and wrong in the documentary, but it kind of felt like they didn't really want to fully commit to really
It blurred the lines. It just
they didn't want to villainize anyone totally. They wanted to make them somewhat humanized and likable, which is bizarre.
Yeah. It felt like to me that every single sort of controversial point that was brought up, it was brought up and it was just left there. And you can imagine
Open to interpretation.
Exactly. You can imagine this sort of visual representation of all of these points up on a board, pinned up on a board. And unless you're splitting them up and saying this is right, this is wrong, it just becomes a mess. And that's what the end of the documentary was. It was just all of this information, a complete mess.
Yes.
So for you guys that have watched it, what was the story? Because for 3 episodes in, I'm like, what's the main point of this story? Are they trying to make the main point that he's about why he's in prison? Or are they trying to make it that she killed her husband? Or are they trying to make it the animal abuse? What is the main arc of this story? What are they trying to
that's
actually
my big
say?
problem with it.
Yeah,
7 episodes, what are they getting across?
You take this, Jack. You give your side.
Well, here's the thing that happened with me. I think I got about the same point of the way through that you did, Justin, about 3 episodes in. And at that point, my motivation to watch it plummeted. It got to the point where I'd wait a day before I started the next episode, or I'd only watch 15 minutes of an episode, then I'd have to turn it off because it just wasn't doing it for me. I didn't understand why all of these things were being brought up and where it was actually going to go. And in the end, it seems like the only way that I can describe it, the overarching thing is captive tigers in America is the big banner, but there is so much that sits under that you can't distinguish what they're getting at. Does that make sense? I don't know if that makes sense.
No, I get what you mean. To the average viewer, the takeaway to what you're saying is there's so many captive tigers in America that the people owning them, they're also nuts. Have a look at some of them. That's the message. Because what was the number of captive compared to wild in the world?
Wild was 4,000 or something, and then captive was between 10 and 20,000 or something.
And
something
majority of which was in America. And what it seemed to be was you're probably wondering how there's so many captive tigers in America and where are they? This is where they are. That was sort of what the takeaway was. Then leaning into, look how entertaining these people are. They're almost as friggin' wild as these animals are. They are nuts. But this is my issue with it. to me, who was looking at it probably more critically, I walked away, not wanting to be a wanker here at all, but what I walked away thinking was the only message here was that, the only way you'll get in trouble for having captive tigers is if you try and harm a human.
Yeah.
Like, pretty much everyone was letting Joe do whatever he wanted to, and Carol, and all of these people. The only time authorities really got involved to a
when there was
level
an assassination attempt.
yes, when a human's life was at risk, and through murder, essentially, that's where they got him. But to then tie him up more and ensure that he went away for longer, that's when they chose to care about these animal rights.
That's what gets me, is the fact that they said, we don't have a strong enough case to put him away just for this murder thing that we've gone after him for. Let's bring in all the animal abuse things that we just turned a blind eye to for the last 10 years he's been doing it.
And it showed...
Such a broken system.
Such a broken system. And it showed in that how little of a priority animal rights are in... Well, I don't know if in America, but it sort of showed in America. But then the reaction to the series around the world being so positive and not at all focused on the animal rights side of things, rather than...
because it gets lost in it.
It does. It gets lost in it. Totally lost in it. Because if you really hammered home the gas chambers of the tiger, how can you bring that up in a documentary and not expand on it?
It's literally a throwaway, it's written
line
on screen for 3 seconds and then it disappears and that's it.
There's nothing. I had to go Google what happened. And to be honest, not much happened. I don't care if not much happened, still put it in the documentary. By not having it in the documentary, you've got a bias. You're trying to protect an image that you're presenting. I can't help but wonder, would it not have had as many viewers if they did lean into the abuse of animals? I probably wouldn't have watched it all if I was seeing tigers be shot and the graphicness of it, which stopped me from watching.
Yeah, it's harder to watch.
Don't fuck with cats. But
I don't know whether it was Justin. So I had a conversation with someone, but they were bringing up the fact that this does not have a good guy. It doesn't have a person to root for. While Don't Fuck with Cats definitely had we want this guy that they're chasing to be locked up. He is the bad guy and they are the good guys because they're hunting him down. And that's the biggest problem with this, is that you can't blame anyone for getting caught up in all of the fantastical sort of showmanship of it all, because they're constantly jumping back and forth as to, this person did this, but maybe this person did this, and they're all bad, but that someone said something good about this person, so maybe they're the good guy, and then it's not presented in a clear manner that just makes everybody confused. And that's why I think it becomes such a meme, is because no one can work it out, so all they can do is parody it and make fun of it.
That's why I think most people like it so much, is because it's not a story. That's why I keep saying that it's like a reality TV show. The reason why those things are so popular is because of the drama of everyone involved. It's like, who's fighting with who today, and who's said that behind that.
Yeah, it's like an easy watch. It's like, it's not hard hitting. It's just sort of it's easy to get into.
And I guess
they're not focused on someone being a hero. It's everyone is the hero, their own hero and villain, and you get to see them just squabble.
Yeah.
And there is something about conflict, I guess, between people where naturally people want to pick a side, whether it's, combat sport or it's a war or it is reality TV. When you're watching an argument or a physical fight or any type of altercation, I guess maybe it's a human instinct to pick a side.
Yeah.
At least on some degree. Unless your morals completely conflict with the argument in the first place, which maybe is why a few of us are sitting here not have been able to agree with anyone in that debate.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
so many could. And I guess at the end of the day, there is a large amount of people out there that aren't that fussed about, animal rights, or it isn't as much of a priority for them. I'm not sitting here being some sort of animal rights activist, but I just couldn't help but notice the glaring omission of what was wrong, what was being done wrong in that documentary that wasn't really highlighted.
Yeah,
Well,
no,
yeah, I think
absolutely.
that's an important thing to get out to anyone that hasn't watched it, that is like thinking about watching it. Because if you're going into it wanting to learn about like captive animals and like how they're treated and stuff, this is not the documentary. If you want to go into it and get involved in the meme culture and understand all the memes going around, then absolutely watch it. But don't go into it thinking you're going to learn something that you're going to be able to take with you for the rest of your life as some like great piece of information that will help you conquer the world. Or, you know, like, I don't know. It's just,
It'll make you
serve you anything of substance.
Yes. And I think if you are somebody that is an animal rights activist, say, or what, you know, endeavoring to be one, it would severely hurt your faith in the world. I would imagine you would watch that.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's so big. It's such a big thing, and like even how they take out the lions and the tigers for the petting zoos and stuff, and they tour these cubs
just in big like trucks.
Yeah, in trucks, and they're out in supermarket car parks, and people are coming up petting. Like the blatant disregard. It's hard to not hammer it home because it's just so lost in the documentary.
Yeah.
But there was one thing in the documentary that I just couldn't help but be fascinated by. And honestly, I think it was largely what kept me going with it was Carol Baskin's husband.
I was just about to ask, getting into this like meme culture, do you guys think that she killed her husband? Because from someone that I only watched, again, the first 3 episodes, but the image that I got, and I don't know if this is the biased point of view that they were like showing in the filming of it, was that she was way too calm and comfortable about all of that questioning and stuff. Like every time that anyone brought anything up, she laughed it off as if like, okay, maybe you've heard this accusation like 100,000 times before, but I feel like if it's regarding your husband's own death, you're not going to be that relaxed about it.
You would be pretty defensive.
It's still, still a touchy topic. Yeah.
Like, what? Feed him to tigers? What are you talking about?
Yeah, it was like an evil genius. Ha ha ha.
Yeah.
Like,
what do you mean? There's no body? What are you talking about?
it very much, and that comes back to what I was saying before. Watching train wreck people in general, and that's what all 3 of these main characters were. It is fascinating with the questions that are raised through just talking and listening to them. That part I'm not going to deny at all, because the more I watched her and the more you found yourself studying her, you're like, as you were just saying, you're like, the way she'd answer questions, you'd be like, that's a bizarre way to answer that one about your dead husband you're killing. You were sort of piecing it together in your mind. You're sort of forming your own opinion, and they were very much wanting you to be more leaning towards, yes, she did kill her husband than not, just through the sheer amount of comments they had from other people. Like they asked everyone in the documentary their opinion on what happened to her husband, all of which said...
And they all said yes.
Yes. You wouldn't show that many, or you would have some contrasting ones if you wanted to give a balanced opinion. Now, what's happened since then? Have you seen the article?
No.
Next
I've
series
not seen the article.
is diving into what happened to her husband.
Oh,
of course there will be another one.
Fantastic.
It's just money, get the wallet out. How much can we shove in?
The puppeteers are at it again, and that they did. And look, I'm more interested in that series, if I'm honest, because, well, one, there's no, well, there will be, but there won't be as much. Well, I will go into that with a different expectation. I'll be going into that one wanting to hear about if somebody killed their husband or not. The tiger information and sort of neglect of animal rights stuff, that it's already been covered. Well, it hasn't been covered, but the series for that was Tiger King. Okay, so I'm going into with... Okay, I'm going into this wanting to hear whether or not she killed her husband. So the aim of the series is more clear and not dependent on covering the information about the animals, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I know what you mean, but here's my concern.
Give it to me.
If it's the same people that are making this new series that made the Tiger King,
Yeah.
Is the same problem going to happen where the message gets lost and they go off on these weird tangents where suddenly you realize you're not watching the show you sat down to watch?
Maybe they're gonna
Yeah.
like push forward for it to be a murder mystery, but they're going to enlighten us on how bad the tiger culture is in the US.
Yeah, it's going to be a complete flip.
It'll be a flip
Yeah.
over. We might actually.
I might watch that season.
Yeah.
That's not a bad point, because I think what you're saying about the documentary makers, they're largely at fault here. They were the ones. They were very much acting more like reality TV show producers than they were documentarians. Like they weren't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They certainly weren't providing all the facts, all the information, and that's it. Isn't that the aim of a documentarian? Like to give everyone
Well-
the facts, and to a large
And let
degree,
them decide.
let you decide. But I don't think we were
Yeah.
given all the facts. Just that simple.
No, we weren't. Oh,
I mean,
100%
I
we
guess
weren't.
most documentaries are biased to a point of view. Like you have to be showing something in a documentary still, but you show all sides so that you can, obtain your own, I guess, overall arching picture of it.
Mm.
But like this was so skewed and biased, and it was more like a 60 minutes documentary where they have an agenda with it, and you're not watching an open-ended discussion. You're watching a point of view.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, I would agree with that for sure. There was a reason they were telling the story rather than the story needing to be told. They weren't sitting there going, this needs to be told. They were telling it because they're like, these people are really entertaining. Not to mention, I don't know about you, right? This is something I picked up on throughout, because what this documentary series had the benefit of was having all this footage from back before the documentary was ever made through the TV producer that was living with Joe Exotic for that time, and he was running
Yeah.
Joe's online series. And in doing so, they had all this footage. He just followed Joe around every single day. Constantly, Joe had a camera rolling. So there was this massive backlog of footage that was just there to be purchased. I mean, what were they doing with it?
I don't think so much of it was from that. I think they started the documentary prior to all of this stuff really happening. So I think a lot of it is them filming the documentary, because I don't know if you remember, but the reason the whole alligator pit got burnt down, the studio got burnt down, was to destroy all of that reality TV tapes. Because he spoke about the fact that all of the tapes and all of the things that could be used to really, like, could be used against Joe, like all of the private conversations he's had and all of that kind of stuff. It was all in that building that got burnt down. So now they have none of it, which is why so much of it leans into probably Joe burnt it down because he wants to protect himself. Or
what I also didn't understand with that was, you know how there was that scene, Justin, this might have been before or after episode 3, but there was a scene where Joe went to his lawyer and was having a conversation with his lawyer about the footage. And
this is weird.
It was talking about, essentially the lawyer was saying to Joe, you need to burn the house down so you essentially need to get rid of the footage. However you do that. And he was saying it to Joe as in, implying it rather than actually saying as much as go burn it down. But there was audio recording. Somebody was rolling a camera in the interview, in the meeting with the lawyer. There was, it wasn't those two, it wasn't framed with the two of them in it. It was like somebody had their iPhone and had the camera rolling, but was like blocking the camera. And so it's just to get the audio.
Yeah, I know. I remember exactly what was said, and it's so like there's no dispute really that it was Joe, because essentially what the lawyer said, the lawyer asked, "Where are all the tapes?" And he said, "In the studio." And the lawyer said, "Are there any copies apart from in the studio?" And Joe said, "No." And then the next thing the lawyer said is, "Well, then you know what you need to do."
Yeah. Yep.
You know what I mean?
And that that was my thing though, Jack, was one, why was Joe recording? Why was he recording?
Because he's an idiot.
Well, he's an idiot.
He's a dumbass.
He's an idiot. 2, how did they get that? Where did that?
I think it was the husband. Wasn't the husband like one of the husbands went with him and probably filmed it on his phone or something like that?
It did seem like there was a third party there. But again, it was those little
because the recording started with Joe saying you keep that rolling, you don't turn that off, and then they walked into the building. So it was a third party, and it was a husband or someone that could have been in that meeting with them.
It feels sometimes throughout it too good to be true with the footage and the audio that they had.
Yeah.
Like and that, to be honest, that's probably a credit to them as filmmakers, not documentarians, but they really were able to string a narrative together with everything they had.
Yeah.
It was cohesive as shit. Like, there's no denying it. It was just poorly delivered and the messaging was lost throughout it. But it was the inside, the back catalogue of footage they had to weave in just through Joe. Joe really sealed his own incarceration in the end by insisting
Sounds
on a
like
camera to be rolling for all those years. All that footage was there. It's all incriminating.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
It's
one thing that I noticed too, which was kind of, I don't know whether misleading is the right word to use, but it definitely threw me off from time to time as I noticed it. And it's very subtle, but in all of the interviews that were taking place, and it would say the person's name and then their sort of position or their role in the story. So like it would say like Joe's husband or, head of the zoo or so-and-so does this, whatever. And it was as if they wanted to tell the story like it was happening as we were watching it, because the little descriptions of people would change as the show went on.
Yeah.
Like you look at an employee gets interviewed and it's employee of Joe Exotic Zoo. And then 3 episodes in, you realize, oh, so this person has been fired. So then the next time they're interviewed, it is changed to ex-employee of Joe Exotic Zoo. It happened with all the husbands, I noticed. Like it still said that they were his husband. Yeah. It still said that they were his husband up until they put into the narrative that, oh, they are divorced now.
Yeah, they were very
ex.
They were on top of everything like that, which was interesting because it helped, because I did find it challenging at times to keep up with the timeline. I was like, where are we? Is this like meant to be current, or is this meant to be 5 years ago? So those little things were helpful, because when you're chopping and changing with footage that wasn't really changing in quality, given the low budget that Joe would have a lot of it filmed on, and somebody like Joe Exotic who had created a certain look for himself, it was hard to determine what point we're at with it. So those little things.
But I think, that's an interesting thing, because I think it goes to show that they weren't there making a documentary. They were there trying to create this story, this narrative. They didn't want to give you all the information right then. And like, for example, the ex-husband thing. They didn't want you to know that they were divorced until it was necessary in the story to know that they were divorced, Yeah. And
little
it's all
reveal.
of this sort of, they're only giving you the information that they want you to have. They're not giving you everything.
And again, leaning back into that reality TV model that Justin was talking about, I don't know if there's that many documentaries that follow that progression.
Well, I think that's just something
they're
that
not
needs to come out of
documentaries,
this. Exactly. Let's just say that this isn't a documentary.
No, it's not.
And it should not be described as a documentary. I think if there's something that you're going to ever tell people, like, oh, what's that show like? Well, yeah, it's a show. It's not a documentary. You're getting a chosen point of view, and they're writing a narrative. They've written the story as they want it to be told.
Yeah. I think I did. I felt that exact way about it. I walked away feeling like I didn't have all the answers I was looking for, and just conflicted about how I was meant to feel about it. I walked away thinking, shit, am I in the wrong for feeling negative about this show, that it wasn't good? And maybe I was expecting too much, or maybe I'm too hypersensitive. And then I went away, and somebody had said to me, hey, have you watched the Louis Theroux one? that he did with Joe Exotic back in 2011. I was like, oh, no, I haven't.
I saw a few clips of this.
I didn't know he'd done that. That would be incredible to watch. I love that guy.
Well, I think that is the best thing to walk away from this series with is go and check out another documentary based on the same thing, because a lot of the same characters are in it, but just a couple of years prior. And admittedly, it's a very different Joe Exotic. It's sort of before he really went insane. Like, mind you, this guy was still a piece of crap. But
at least he sort of was still thinking about the animals at this point in his
he seemed more
career.
Yeah, he seemed more concerned with the health and well-being of the animals. And you are instantly reminded of what a documentary is. And to your point, Justin, that this is not one. This is just not. So go and watch the Louis Theroux documentary. I think it's called Wild Cats or something like that. And you will instantly understand a little bit more why we're saying this was not a documentary by any stretch.
Yeah.
100%. But yeah, all in all.
On that.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, watch anything made by Louis Theroux, because that man is a genius.
How good's that Scientology one? I love that Scientology one. So good.
Incredible.
And that is a documentarian, folks, okay?
Yes.
Not this other thing. But yeah, look, anyway, Justin only got 3 episodes in. Jack, you managed, like I did, to tough it out just if for nothing else than the pure ability to be able to fully understand what everyone was talking about and be able to pass judgment. Justin Justin was that convinced after 3 episodes that it was crap. That was enough.
Now, I had to go back to watching Ozark.
Yes, much better show, much better waste of time. He's watching.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. But yeah, any final thoughts, boys, before we wrap it up?
They're all bad people.
Don't fuck with cats.
They're all bad people, and don't fuck with cats. Pretty good summary for 3 blokes that didn't love Tiger King. I tried to get somebody that did really like it, but apparently either they knew
no one exists.
Or maybe the social media world is all an illusion.
Actually, I'm convinced that anyone that does like it is in hiding because they realize that they shouldn't.
It's a guilty pleasure at this point, I think. But,
exactly.
Yeah. Well, anyway, boys, thanks for joining me for the first Zoom Pop Culture Report. It was a pleasure. We had a couple internet issues early, but we got through. We
did. We got through in the end.
Always a pleasure having you, boys. Enjoy the rest of your day. And go watch something productive on Netflix. Go watch something that's meant to be fictional, not accidentally fictional like Tiger King.
Yeah.
Thanks, boys.
Call.
Thanks, boys.
Catch you later.
All right, well, there you have it. That's just 3 people giving their opinion on the Tiger King Netflix documentary series, which we've sort of just tried to label not a documentary, rather reality TV show. So if you're a fan of The Circle, that big Netflix reality show, you'll probably like Tiger King, because we can't help but think it's not a documentary, or at least it doesn't fall into what a documentary is classically. The format of a documentary. Anyway. But hey, if you disagree, by all means, let us know. Let us know that you think what we spoke about today you don't agree with. Okay, if you've got some arguments, put them in. Let's try and be civil though. Let's have a civil conversation about it. Doesn't need to get aggressive. I don't need some Joe Exotic enthusiasts out there coming after me. It's not productive. In a world of social distancing, I can't have people turning up on my doorstep, knocking, abusing, keep it virtual, that's cool. Hurl some abuse my way, that's fine. And you can do so in a more productive way on iTunes. Jump on iTunes, give a little review, little feedback about the show. If you want to get into a bit of Joe there, you can, that's fine. Whatever is welcome. But yeah, you can get all the podcasts. You can get this one, you can get prior episodes on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube. If you haven't hit up the YouTube channel yet, there's a new YouTube channel specifically for this show, rather than us being on the production label's YouTube channel, which was Cheeky Leprechaun. We now have our own one. So go find the podcast there. You can always find the links to that in our social media, which is still through the Cheeky Leprechaun Productions Facebook page and Instagram page. Or you can follow me on Instagram at Dan O'Kelly. I think that's my thing. You know, the more I think about it, the more I've just sort of I've dived into a plug there of my own Instagram channel without even really thinking about it, without even doing it normally. Daniel_O'Kelly. There you go, that's my Instagram. And that was me padding while I found it. So you can do that, you can hit us up there, you can jump on the Cheeky Leprechaun website, cheekyleprechaun.com.au, and you can find all the backlog of heaps of stuff there, the podcasts, some videos, whatever you feel like doing. But yeah, either way, subscribe, download, review, star us, whatever you want to do to support the podcast, it's always welcome. Anyway, guys, keep enjoying Netflix, keep finding things to watch. We live in a great world of pop culture with TV, movies, games, music, whatever it is. If you have something you want us to talk about, you can always let us know too. If you want to jump on Zoom with me and have a little podcast discussion, that's always welcome also. Reach out to me on the socials. Otherwise, guys, have a good week in isolation. Hope you're all doing well. See you soon.
This has been a Cheeky Leprechaun production.